All right, in our last video, we talked about linear equations, what they were, and what standard form was, and how to write an equation in standard form. In this video, we're going to talk about graphing with intercepts. Well, to be able to do that, we better understand what intercepts are. So, the x-intercept is quite simply the x-coordinate of the point at which the graph crosses the x-axis. So remember, our graph is our line, and wherever that line crosses the x-axis, that is going to be our x-intercept. And the same thing holds true for the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point at which the graph crosses the y-axis. So again, wherever our line crosses the y-axis, that y-coordinate is our y-intercept. So let's take a look at an example here. We've got our graph, our blue line's our graph, and if we look at where it crosses the x-axis, it crosses the x-axis right there. That happens to be the ordered pair -4, 0. So the x-coordinate of that point is going to be our y-intercept, our x-intercept. So our x-intercept is -4. When we're looking for our y-intercept, well, our graph crosses the y-axis right at this point. That is the point 0, 2. So the 2 is the y-coordinate of that, and so 2 is our y-intercept. So locating those, are not too difficult if we have the graph in front of us, okay? What I want you to look at though is look at the placement of the zeros. In the x-intercept, the y is 0. In the y-intercept, it's the x that is 0. We're going to take that and we're going to apply it when we're trying to find x and y intercepts from just the equation. When we don't have the graph, we just have the equation. So let's take a look at this. To find the x-intercept, all we've got to do is to substitute 0 in for y and solve it for x. And this will be the x-intercept. Remember, in our ordered pair where our graph crossed the x-axis, the y-coordinate was 0. So if we plug 0 in for y and solve for x, it makes sense that we're going to get the x-intercept. The same thing is true when we're looking for y. Y-intercept. If we'll substitute 0 in for the x and solve it for y, this will give us the y-intercept. And if you think about it and you look at those ordered pairs that we did in that example just above, it'll make sense why we can do this, because the ordered pair for the y-intercept, the x is 0 and the y is the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and we're going to try to graph just using intercepts. With the equation is 4x plus 8y is equal to 32. So let's find the x-intercept first. We know that if we replace the y with 0 and solve for x, the result will be the x-intercept. So let's go ahead and plug this in. Plug 0 in for y, and then we'll go ahead and simplify that because 8 times 0 is 0, and 4x plus 0 is just 4x. So that's going to give us with 4x is equal to 32. We're solving for x, so we need to go ahead and isolate. Well, 4 times x, the inverse of that is to divide both sides by 4. When we divide both sides by 4, we end up with x is equal to 8. So our x-intercept is 8. Let's go ahead and do the same thing, but this time we're looking for the y-intercept. So what are we going to make 0? Exactly, we're going to make the x 0. So let's simplify that. 4 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 8y is 8y. So after simplifying that, we've got 8y is equal to 32. To isolate y, we need to do the inverse of what they're doing to it. They're multiplying it by 8, so we're going to divide it by 8, and we're going to divide both sides by 8, because what happens on one side has to happen on the other side. Well, 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1 times y is just y, and 32 divided by 8 is 4, so our y-intercept is equal to 4. And I think I have that there on both those, and I just forgot to touch them. So we solved here, we plugged in 0 for y and solved for the x-intercept. We have the x-intercept is 8. We plugged 0 in for the x over there and solved for y, and we came up with the y-intercept. Now let's go ahead and put those to use. Okay, if the x-intercept is 8, that means that's the point at which our graph is going to cross the x-axis. So let's go ahead and put that point there. Okay, our y-intercept is positive 4, so we're going to put the point at positive 4. Now to do the graph, you're going to have to take a straight edge, a ruler, and draw a straight line. I've got my straight line here that I'm going to put up here to show you what yours should look like. It goes through both points, and it extends clear across the graph. Okay, so we graphed that equation. We graphed the equation 4x plus 8y equals 32, just using the x and y intercepts. Hope that helps. Like always, reach out if you need a hand, and have a good one.